So, I want to talk about grief and dying, two subjects that are, not that welcome at the dinner party. But I don't want to talk about the individual um, process of dying, except as that is relevant to the dying of a civilization. I feel like we are facing a deep transition as a global civilization, and the experience is the experience of dying, and we're not doing it well. We're not doing it well because we haven't been taught how to do it. And I feel like there's a fundamental problem, that we have this dream of immortality rather than a trust in eternity. And immortality and eternity are two different things. Immortality is this idea that the self that we are, the being that we are, the civilization that we are is going to last forever. And eternity is knowing that there is something outside time and space that is eternal. So it's not about this project that we're stuck in about making the individual or the civilization go on in spite of the fact that it's not working. So I know in my own life, the times when I have truly grown or transitioned is when I have accepted the death and gone through the dark night and trusted that there's something new on the other side. Of course, I did this reluctantly at first because there was nothing around me that helped me understand that there are times to let go. In a death-adverse culture, like I know my first marriage, I tried to hold on and make it work. Like I just believed if I could do enough, I could learn enough, communication skills, and I didn't know that it had completed, and that it needed to be ended gracefully and with love. So, and I did that with a career or jobs, and I did that with every time I reached the end of something, I tried harder because nobody taught me that we're supposed to die, and not just physical death. We don't just face our physical death, face our psychological death, the death of the identity that we think we are. And so if we're suffering from something as a culture, as a civilization, we're suffering from this prolonged adolescence, this attempt to just keep doing more of what we're doing, because if we try harder, then we will become immortal, that the being that we are, the self that we are, will survive forever. And I see this so powerfully in our civilization at the moment. Even this year with the coronavirus and the riots in America and so on, there's this sense that if we could just do the right thing, if we could just get our act together, if we can just, we'll go on, and we'll go on better and stronger than we were before. But it's a lie. It's time to die. It's time to let the civilization and the very underpinnings of our civilization, the whole thing that we're based it on, is past its use-by date now. Like, the universe has been trying to tell us for decades, since the 60s, okay, enough already. This energy of survival and control and the hero's march towards immortality, that got us to a certain point. But it's been time to die for a while. And because we're resisting that death, then it's going to come to us from the outside. It's going to come to us through the upwelling of shadow. It's going to come to us through rebellion. It's going to come to us through disease. It's going to come to us through all of these things that look like something from the outside, but actually it's on the inside. It's part of the high suicide rate and the depression and that we take drugs for and all of those other things, is because death, sweet death, mysterious, beautiful death is coming for us. And we are resisting. We're resisting and we're resisting, turning death into an enemy that has to take us by force, take us against our will, when if we were taught how to consent to death, because death is life. And that there are times when everything that we know ourselves to be has to be put on the altar and surrendered in trust of the eternal. And that eternal will always transform and bring new life. but we can't hold on to this decaying corpse of a civilization based on property ownership, based on control and dominion, based on fear, based on trying to survive at all costs. It's like, that's a stage of evolution, and it's a stage that's past its use by date. And there is something waiting underneath. Like, anybody who has really reached the end of a cycle of their lives knows that if they learned how to lay themselves down, trust that life will come in new form, that then evolution takes place. But we're so adverse to death that we don't know how to do it, and we're doing it terribly. We're doing it by exerting more and more control and more reason and more consciousness and more science and more politics. We're trying to dominate the problem, fix the problem. We've so set ourselves against nature and life that we don't know how to die. So along with this lack of capacity to face our death, to trust that civilization has another wave that's coming, a wave that's based on love and freedom and harmony with the world and all of these things that's come in little pockets around the world, that the civilization itself has to let go. And one of the things that stops that dying well is a lack of understanding how to grieve, a lack of understanding how to face the end. We're in this adolescence of wanting the sun to shine forever. And that's a really good analogy, because our civilization is solar. It's been solar since Copernicus. It's been solar actually since Heliopolis in Egypt. It's been solar since we made the consciousness principle the God, that we realized that the earth went round the sun. So we let go of all of the goddess traditions or whatever, and we enshrined consciousness and science and knowing the answer and penetrating the mysteries. We made the mystery our enemy. We made nature our enemy, and we made our consciousness the ruling deity that could penetrate the mystery with our understanding. Okay, that all was beautiful development, but you know, it's for 100 years now we've known that the sun is not the center. And in 2000, we had the black hole at the center of the galaxy first revealed. And last year, we even had a photo of it. Like, how much do we have to understand that the sun is not the center? Our consciousness is not the center. The soul is not the center. There is a deeper center. That's the sun of the sun. That's the black hole at the center of the galaxy. That is the mystery of darkness and emptiness. That is the not knowing. That is the doorway into the eternal, which can bring life and bring life more abundant and everlasting life, not immortality, not the preservation of the body mind or of a civilization at all costs, but an understanding that the eternity is cyclic and it brings forth more life. So, you know, this solar consciousness has to die now. It has to willingly surrender itself. And of course it will come back, just like Gaian consciousness. The earth is still here, and the moon and the great goddess is still here, and the sun will still be here, but now we will base the core of our life force in something deeper, something greater. Einstein said you can't solve a problem from the same problem that it's the level that it's created, and we're not going to get past solar consciousness and everything that that brings by more consciousness. So all of these ideas that if we just raise consciousness, that we get everyone to a high enough level of consciousness that everything would work, that's not it. There's something deeper than consciousness. That's the mystery. That's the void. That's the not knowing of the answer. That's the surrender. That's the facing our death and knowing that it's life. It's a civilization asking for help, realizing it's got to the end. So that other part is grieve. How do we learn how to grieve, how to praise the life? Solar civilization has been amazing. It's just reached the end of its time. So how do we appreciate it, take the best of it, like grieve for the time that it's over and surrender, lay the king with his sword down. Put it to rest in the earth. Put it to rest in cosmos and trust that resurrection will come, and that resurrection will get us past
all of the things that consciousness does, which divide with its sword, separate consciousness from body, separate, race from race, from, religion from religion. The dividing sword of consciousness is surrendered to the mystery. And that mystery, as it appears, requires us to grieve and let go, to surrender. So where are our leaders that are telling us not like business as usual? We just need to fight this virus, and we need to do something about racism, and we need to fix these problems, and then we'll just go on ahead. Immortality, the civilization will go on. Haven't we learned from Rome and all of these places where civilization reaches a point and it either dies or it's taken down? What if we reached a time where we understood where we are? We're just like a human being. If we understand and we've been through the dying process enough times in our lives and know that we resurrect, why can't our civilization be wise enough to understand this? Why don't we have leaders who tell us, look, it's time to examine the very roots of our civilization, not try to bolster it. So let's look at those roots. Part of the roots of the Christian era are this idea of dominion over the kingdoms of nature, this idea of control of our mind over our body, this idea that nature is something to be, given to us, this idea that we are somehow, the elite, that we can somehow use our God-given minds to find the solution and the answer, that we can own property for God's sake, that we can own each other. So all of this comes from, an evolutionary development which is past now. It's time to actually surrender back to the earth, to our wild selves, to surrender back to cosmos, to listen together, to really get the message of being sent to our rooms. Okay, let's stop. It's not just business as usual. Let's stop. Let's understand we're going through transition. We're going through initiation. We're going through a death. And on the other side of the death is new life, but not if you don't go through the death, not if you prolong the death, not if you forget to grieve and praise and surrender and listen and ask for what's true inside you to emerge for the eternal, to bring new life, to bring a new phase, to bring a new civilization that's based on different things. I would so love the people that are in positions of influence and power in the world to lead in a different way, to lead from their helplessness, from their grief, from their understanding that the problems are too big for them, that they can't solve it with clever technology or new ideas and, another assertion of the consciousness of humanity, that we surrender together, that we ask for help, we ask for inspiration from the core of our being and from cosmos and from the nature and all of these places that are waiting for humans to die gracefully so that something can be reborn, and the human spirit can remember what it's here for really, which is not to have dominion over the earth, but is that part of the earth that is awake and conscious, that part of the consciousness of the universe that can self-realize and remember itself as the love and the freedom that it is. So I want to hear this note that I'm not hearing of dying, of meeting our dying, of facing death, rather than doing everything we can to resist it. And it's not just a physical death. It's the death of our psychology. It's the death of our hero. It's the death of our determination to fight at all costs against the wild nature of the world. How do we stop and breathe and listen together? Otherwise, we'll have just succeeded in reasserting civilization and asking for an even greater takedown from the world around us. Why can't we take ourselves down when it's time? Why can't we admit that it's time to die gracefully, to grieve with a whole heart, and to welcome a different expression of the life that we are?